That right there makes it a great day to talk about racing. That is awesome. Welcome into the brand new F1 starting grid. Hey, there's Chaz Day, there's Mike Allen. And I'm the ever calm Brock Young as your host. Promise not to blow up this week, if I can. But I got a feeling I'm not going to be the one blowing up this week, honestly. The way we're going to be discussing. Brings us...
Hey, just to keep Brock from blowing up, Chaz, I just want to let you know his trigger word is Haas. Well, we won't mention that anymore.
Brock's Rants brought to you by Extra Strength Valium. No, I'm good. Said before, I don't think I'm the one going to be blowing up this week, but we'll see. Unless we bring up that word again. Honestly, that brings us to our first discussion, and that's going to be sprint races. Let me go down all of this, what everything has entailed. It's not new, but with all these new rules and regulations coming into place now, spending cap, salary cap coming in a couple of years, F1 thought about this for a couple of years of doing it. It is in F2, very successful, but I wanted to get y'all guys' opinions on this, and that is the sprint races. And once again, just to give you a quick description of it, said before, F2 is currently using sprint races. They're going to try out for 3 races this season: Canada, the second race in Italy, and Brazil. Qualifying will be moved to Friday. It will be replaced by practice number 2. Qualifying on Friday will determine how to start for the Saturday sprint race. The drivers, the way they finish the sprint race is how they will start on the grid on Sunday. The top 8 drivers will receive points going into Sunday. And if this is successful, Formula One and the FIA will put this in place for every race starting next season. Now, the pros and cons of this is this boost for promoters, television, and fans. It is also, it helps the lower and mid-pack teams compete with the upper tier, as well as more surprises. Now, the cons of this is devaluing the Sunday's race. Qualifying will be less important for drivers. Teams cannot use practice number 2 to test their tires, and on that point, more wear and tear on the tires, which with the new spending costs coming in, there's more cost for the teams replacing the tires and everything. Now, Mike, going into this, do you see this favorable or unfavorable?
Well, I was kind of F2 has been able to make it work. I think it adds a new wrinkle. It definitely is gonna change up the game a little bit as far as what they've been doing for the last 70, 80 years. So I'm interested to see how it plays out. I mean, I like it. I like anything that's going to make teams, they're more parity and give other teams a chance and kind of move the field around a little bit. The salary cap and the spending cap is going to do that, of course, but this just adds another wrinkle to it. And I'm excited for it.
Well, it definitely does. I mean, honestly, this is the second most watched sport in the world. And to your point, it's just like they've been around for 70 years. Why mess up a good thing? But to bring in new fans, probably fans from the United States, possibly. We talked about that last week with Haas. But I don't know. It's probably something I have to see. We said before, they're going to try for 3 races, starting in Canada, and that's going to be on June the 12th. So we'll see how it goes. Chaz, what do you think about this? Do you think it's a good thing, bad thing for Formula One?
You know what? I feel like I have to kind of follow the guys on the grid a little bit and just kind of assessing, well, not just the guys on the grid. I think a lot of people have had things to say about whether it's good or bad. I probably the most outspoken person about it has been Vettel. I know we'll talk about him a little bit later, but yeah, he absolutely hates the idea, says that it doesn't make any sense. Here's what's interesting. So Vettel hated the idea. I think Ricardo also weighed in, said he really didn't like the idea. Toto Wolff, on the record, said that he that it was something that F1 needs to do, which is very interesting. I don't know whether there's something in the fact that, like, you know, Vettel's on a team that's not performing very well, so adding another thing that you have to focus on just kind of seems like, you know, why would we do that right now? It just kind of adds an additional amount of stress. And Toto is on a team that is completely in control of everything that they do. And so adding another thing to their plate is kind of like, why not? He did say specifically that it was, you know, it's from an entertainment standpoint. You know, he said F1 is entertainment and this would be entertaining for fans. That's what Toto said. I also think that it's a little interesting that Toto was in, if he wanted to, this is kind of the word on the streets, if he wanted to, he could be over all of F1. So if he, you know, when he decides to leave Mercedes, a lot of people are saying that his next role is head of F1. So it doesn't surprise me that he would even be thinking from the perspective of, hey, what's the most entertaining for fans? Because honestly, I think he's outperforming his job right now. But I don't know. I feel like on this particular thing, I feel like, yes, it adds another factor. And if you're looking to bring more people into the sport, I see how taking an entertainment approach to it does just that. Because at the end of the day, I mean, whether you're a purist or not, you still have to acknowledge, like, you know, like Mike said so eloquently a couple of weeks ago, and it's kind of stuck with me, like, F1's a money sport. I mean, you have to keep that in mind, and it's people that bring money into the sport, so you have to account for the entertainment factor.
Also, to your point there, Chaz, Ferrari came out in support of this as well. And said before, I probably have to wait to see what that looks like. And I mean, they have it in NASCAR as starting of the race. It's very successful there, but we have to wait and see. But I actually want to come into another point to throw a little curveball into.
But before we move on, another thing that just watching the evolution of F1 and just recently in the last couple of years, going back and watching all those old films from the 60s and the 70s and the 80s, the cars now have kind of outgrown the tracks. So, you know, we've seen that in the last, well, it started with Schumacher. Every year, every race, you knew Schumacher was going to be in the top two. Now it's Hamilton. And I think what F1's trying to do is mix that up a little bit so you don't really know who's going to win. And there's a little more competitive edge in it because these cars are so big. The cars that they're driving now are bigger than the cars than they used to drive on the same courses. I mean, you're not going to get a lot of passing opportunities in Monte Carlo, you know, because the track hasn't changed since the 50s. So, but anyway. Actually, so it adds a new wrinkle. I'm excited for it. I can't wait to see how it plays out.
Actually, that is a very good segue because I was going to ask you guys, you know, minus the late 2000s, but last 20, 25 years, whenever a power unit or redesign comes out, there's a team that stands out that's dominant. You know, we get, as you said, Schumacher, you had Vettel back in early 2010s, you had Lewis Hamilton the last few years. With all these new rules, spinning caps, sprint races, all this information, do you see a dominant team, or do you see separate winners from year to year, at least for the next few years? Mike?
I see a shift to more of a driver talent based outcome as opposed to a machine based outcome. Not taking anything away from Hamilton, but you threw George Russell in his car for one race and he was in the top three. And he probably would have won, but I think there were some shenanigans. I'm sure that will be handled in the documentary that's coming out on Netflix, because that race pissed me off because he should have won that race. But I think the thought process and what happened to George was that if he wins the race, then it's going to show what everybody kind of feels. The Hamilton, a talented driver, is winning probably 80% on his talent and 25 to 30% on the vehicle that's the class of the field that no other car can stand up to. So you throw any driver into that car with talent, and they're gonna be in the top half of the they're gonna be in the top half of the finish. So I think when you take the technology and make it more even, then the individual driver's talent is going to be more of of a deciding factor, not just the machine they're in.
Well, I was going to give you my take, but I want to get Chaz as the Lewis Hamilton fan, Mercedes guy, of what you just said there. What do you think about that, Chaz?
Uh, I think I think it doesn't really add up. I think Mike's kind of right on that part. Like, yeah, it doesn't really add up that. Well, I'll say this. I was going to say that it doesn't add up that you know, he was able to do so well in that car, but I guess the point that Mike was making is actually that it does add up, right? Like it's the car that is you know, extraordinary. I would say, you know, it's true to some extent, to a lot of extent actually, but I would also kind of factor in, you know, our second driver who has, I mean, he's put in some dominant performances as well. He's done very well. Bottas, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about, but I think it's really been like the consistency piece for Hamilton. That, I mean, he's been, you know, he's found a way to consistently, you know, not, it's also not crashing your car, right? So you can have the fastest car there is, but I mean, if you're not making good decisions, if you're pulling Max Verstappen's, and you know, just kind of like taking the risk where there doesn't need to be, and or not managing your tires well. I mean, it's not like he's done this without controversy or without any sort of like challenges. It's an inside joke between me and some other friends that Lewis is always complaining about his tires, and I don't know what's actually real, like whether he just you know, really has an issue with his tires, or he's just always like, you know, guys, my tires are just, my tires are shot. Like, I don't know. I think he just likes being stressed. But that being said, you know, again, it's not without controversy. He does have to overcome some real challenges in managing tires and managing the race. Even if he's lapping people, I mean, you still have to be careful. Like that's actually super dangerous if you're ahead, you know, lapping people, because people do stupid stuff. So yeah, I think the car is to blame or to credit for a lot of Mercedes' success. And I think that it'll be extremely interesting to see how, you know, evening the playing field from both a financial standpoint and from a car standpoint changes the field. But I think I said a couple weeks ago, I still feel like the better teams are going to come out on top because they'll just have better processes.
I have a question for you, Chaz. Take Lewis Hamilton and stick him in a Williams car. Does he have the same success?
So stick Lewis Hamilton in. So let's say let's kind of back it up and say he's not Lewis Hamilton, right? Yeah, because obviously, like, we know who he is. So what happens is exactly what happened with like Charles Leclerc, for example, where his performances weren't extraordinary, but everyone just knew that guy, like that kid is amazing. You know what I mean? Like what he's doing versus like that car is just unbelievable. And so a lot of the assessing of like how good a driver, like an individual driver is, really is how, you know, as far as like team principles, when they're looking at, you know, who's a good driver and other drivers are looking at who's a good driver and who's not, they're really looking at the performance of the driver relative to the car, like what the car is capable of, right? Is the person outperforming their car? And I think that Lewis Hamilton outperforms every car that you put him in.
Well, honestly,
but do you think he would? Do you think he would have the success in a
No,
Williams?
absolutely not.
Well, which is my point. I'm not taking anything away from Lewis as a driver. He's probably he's going to go down in history as one of the greatest F1 drivers ever to take a seat. And the fact that he was able to get with a team that cannot not only that he could use his skills to the greatest potential, but they put him in a machine that he was able to manipulate to such great success. But I think you're right. I think a good driver is going to make any machine that he gets into perform that it's at its top. You take a great driver and you stick him in a superior machine that he can make perform to its top potential. and that's
But it's the same in every sport, though, right? Like if you're really good, you get the privilege of playing on the best teams, right? Like
yeah,
if you're really good,
yeah, absolutely,
you get to
absolutely.
play on the Yankees. You get to play on with the Lakers. Like you get to, right? And so, um, yeah, I think they no, I'm not. I think I know for a fact they would have finished with points with Lewis Hamilton as a driver.
Oh, and I agree with that. Probably not winning
But
every
they
single
don't
race.
win.
It's not
They
like,
don't win anything.
I mean, even this year, I was watching some races. In halfway through the race, it's like, well, they're talking about who's going to come in third and fourth because I already know who's going to win. It's Hamilton because he's 17 seconds ahead of the field and just kind of cruising with 20 laps left, And they're making comments like, as long as he doesn't crash,
Right.
he's not even getting pressured. I mean, a couple of races he
The
got
challenges
pressured by
are just
Max,
different,
but
right? Like his challenges aren't really. I mean, because look, and this is a real thing, even though it's like a different challenge. But mid season, Mercedes was really struggling with their tires last year.
yeah, yeah.
They were just kind of like, what the heck? Like they were really struggling with their tires. And as funny as it sounds, the reason why they were struggling with their tires is because their engineering is so good. They were creating so much downforce that it was wearing out the tires. Like that's like they're on another level with engineering. So they actually have to like dial it back a little bit and like, guys, maybe a little less downforce, right? Like, so I mean, there's some real challenges, but it's just challenges on another level.
Well, I remember one episode. I remember one. It was Silverstone. One of the Silverstone races. Lewis Hamilton's tires was going out, and one of the mechanics kept on saying, "It's like Max is 15 seconds behind you. Now it's 10 seconds behind you. Now it's 7 seconds behind you." It's like, okay, quit telling me. It's like, and you can see his tire going out on the right hand side there.
Yeah.
He just barely made it over the finish line. But I want to go back to that point, Chaz. Do you see a dominant team going forward, or do you see like individual championships going forward, at least in the next few years with everything?
Oh, I get what you're saying. You're saying like that will it kind of jump around from
Right.
team to team?
Just like the late 2000s, you saw multiple champions that during that time.
That'd be really fun. I think it'd be really fun to kind of see some other teams get into the mix. We have some changes with new manufacturers coming in. I know we'll talk about that a little bit. New power units, new drivers. So I think they're and then obviously like huge, like a change that we've never seen before, changing the payout structure and making all the cards. I mean, this is something that we've never seen before. So if there ever was an opportunity for things to kind of go back to square, even if it's just because it'll take a couple years for teams to figure out their new normal, right? Then I can definitely see, Renault putting together, a great season. I can see a Red Bull very easily see Red Bull putting together a great season. I mean, this is the only way it would happen, but I can 100% see Red Bull winning a championship in the first season after the changes, right?
With their own power plant.
Yeah, completely reasonable.
Well, it's to the point I made a couple weeks ago. They're coming out with the new engine this season, towards the end of the season. So they're going to get a jump of everything.
Right.
So they definitely will have the opportunity in the jump to get ahead of everybody starting in 2022. I mean, to me, I think that's maybe not this season, but I do see Max as a champion maybe in 2022 if they could get it.
It won't be this season for sure, but I agree with you. It very well could be next year. It could be as soon as next year. That's very conceivable.
Mm-hmm. Well, this next discussion is actually you brought up, Chaz, and I just have a couple of clarifications. Your question is, do you think Sebastian Vettel is washed up? Now, is that will he win any more championships, or will he win just races, or even to the point will he get on the podium and taste that champagne anymore? what is your what was your thought process behind that? Do you think?
Well, I mean, I feel like it's an interesting question, right? Because we have the third most winningest driver in F1 history,
Mhm.
who hasn't won in how many years now? I mean, I think it's been since like what would effectively, I mean, since before 2010. So we're looking at teens as far as like how many years it's been.
Mhm.
So I think it's been like 2007 or 2008 or something like that. So um, yeah, I think it's an interesting question to ask if you still have that driver in the field and he's the third winningest driver of all time. What's going on? Why hasn't this guy been on a podium in a couple of years? What's actually happening with him and what's going to happen in the future? I mean, it's the same sort of question that we ask um, of our Spanish our Spanish friend who is an absolute legend. You're one of your favorite drivers, but
Alonso.
what's that?
Alonso.
Alonso, exactly. But I mean, you just have to ask the question, right? Like, are they capable of getting on a podium again? I personally feel like Vettel is in a downward spiral. And when I say that, I don't mean downward in the sense that like it's irreversible. Or actually, I'll say this: it's I do feel like it's irreversible. I don't feel like it's terrible. Like he's trash now, but I do feel like he's towards the end of his career from like an age perspective. He's had a couple of seasons, and this is a very much a "what have you done for me now lately" sport, like most of them. So he's in after having a couple of seasons where he's underperformed even the new driver on the team, right? Like he's underperformed Charles Leclerc by a long shot. So I think when teams are talking about giving him a shot, I mean it's not conceivable for him to go to a top team anymore. I don't really think that's a real option for him. And if he's not able to go to a top team, I don't think that he's capable of winning.
Well, he said on Twitter right before Aston Martin revealed their car is like our official goal is third place. I think that means we have a lot to ahead. We have a lot to be ahead of Ferrari. For me, there's no personal satisfaction in being in front of Ferrari. The satisfaction lies in being satisfied in my own performance. Now we're going to get into Aston Martin here in a minute, but with four-time
They said third place.
third place as constructors.
That's dreaming, but I'm sorry. You
Okay, that's a good assessment. Um, Going into this, I mean, yeah, he's a four-time world champion. I mean, he's the same age as Lewis Hamilton, though. Um,
Yeah, but it's been a lot longer since he's won,
it's true.
and he has a lot less total wins.
Well, yeah. Would he get? Will he win a championship again? I don't think so. But I think to write him off the podium there, I don't. He may get one or two podiums this season. Honestly, Mike, do you see something different?
I mean, I hate to look too deep into the head game, but you have to believe you can win. And he didn't have he started out strong with Ferrari. He podiumed a couple of times. What was it, 2 years ago?
Mm-hmm.
And then last year, that was the decline of Ferrari, and now he's fighting in the mid range. And I don't know if mentally he's still in the game. And I've watched him. I like him because he's got the best press conferences. He's got that good sense of humor. And I think last year that I didn't see any of that anymore. So I don't know if he's tired, wore out, maybe. I don't know. I don't know enough about him, or I haven't watched too many things about him. Just from what I'm seeing, first impression. Especially when their goal is third. I mean, I don't know. That's the old Sebastian Vettel would have said, "Screw third. We're going to go for it all."
Yeah.
I guess is the point I'm making. And now he's like, yeah, we're going to go for third in the constructors. And then he's like, no, I don't even want to be a part of a team that's not going to be dominant. And over the years, it's kind of faded. So I don't know if the age is set in or just, I mean, I don't see him winning a championship again, but uh, definitely not the same Sebastian Vettel of 2014, 2013, you know.
No, absolutely not. But do you see something like on Chaz, do you see at least him getting on the podium this season?
So
Um, I mean, it's in two things. Well, one, a correction: the last time he won was in 2013. The other thing is, I feel like in order to be on the podium, you have to be the top three, right? Like, I mean, it's more than a feeling; it's a fact. I mean, which means that I mean, let's just talk about the drivers that we have in the field. We have Hamilton, we have Bottas, we have Verstappen, we have Perez, we have Ricardo, we have Norris, we have Leclerc. Before we even get to Leclerc, we have Sainz Jr. And all of those guys could be in better cars than him. Well, maybe not Charles and Sainz, but today they're better drivers than he is.
Yeah.
So you have better drivers, and then you have, at least at least six drivers that are in better cars in McLarens, Red Bulls, and Mercedes. So, I mean, if you put it all together, that's 8 driver car combinations that are better than him. I mean,
Not to mention that Lance Stroll got on the podium before him last season.
he did. He did. Lance Stroll he also had the best season that he's ever had last season. I mean, he actually showed up. I know a lot of people, crap on him for the most obvious of reasons, but yeah, I mean, Lance Stroll is no slouch. I mean, he made his way through the ranks like everybody else. Maybe, his seat was secured by his dad having a couple bucks. But that being said, man, I mean, he would have to beat out a good number of people in order to even make it, 5 people in order to even make it to the podium. Now that's possible, with just the antics that go on in a race with crashes or disqualifications and all that. But that also includes him, right? It also means that he's not involved in any crashes, right? That also means that he has to qualify high enough. I don't know. I think both things are very much possible. It is possible for him to get on the podium, but it's also just as possible for him to go through the entire season and not see a single podium.
Well, that's very interesting, I tell you. That actually leads us into our next topic here, and that's Aston Martin itself. Now, it was just reported. Now, this is interesting that Mercedes purchased a stake in Aston Martin for 20%. Now, this is just the company, but that could translate into the racing division itself. But what is also most kind of interesting too is not somewhat, but quite interesting is Toto Wolff purchased a stake himself for 1%. Now, also, Aston Martin is using the Mercedes schematics, the engine, the drivetrain, the chassis, the suspension, everything from the Mercedes from last season, the WL. So, I mean, honestly, out of all the mid-tier teams I was the least bullish on Aston Martin. But now they're calling this the Green Mercedes. Hell, I'm going to quote this myself. I'm going to probably trademark it and I'm going to call them the Green Arrows. So
I think DC Comics might have a little problem.
But you have the same engine, the same transmission, the same suspension, the same chassis, everything that Mercedes had a winning formula with last year, you have that in the Aston Martin. You even see like behind the driver, you see like this little indentions in the car to make room for that part of the engine, just like Mercedes. Do you see it? I mean, honestly, I'm getting more bullish. I mean, I'm not still that as bullish, but I'm still more bullish on Aston Martin hearing this information, spending the money going into this than I would, like a week or two ago. Do you see them as a champ? I mean, do you see them competing this year, Mike? Or
Well, the key word here is last year's technology. So where Mercedes has evolved into this year's technology, Aston Martin's picking up Mercedes last year's technology. So that make them a top tier racing team? I don't think so, but they'll definitely be the leaders of the middle, especially, because like Chaz said earlier, Mercedes just has got the technology dialed in. They've got everything dialed in. So they're not rebuilding anything. They're just taking the excellence that they've already achieved, and they're not screwing it up, but continuously improving on it. So those cars are going to be the cars to beat still until something proves different. And if Aston Martin's coming in with last year's design, well, you're a year behind already in technology. So they'll do better than most, because even Mercedes last year's design is better than, say, Ferrari or, definitely Williams, who's using Mercedes power plant. So will they be competitive in the midfield? Yes. Will they be dominant and be third place? I think I'm with Chaz on this one. I think third place, I think they're 2 car crashes away from third place.
That's a good point. Now with Williams, actually, they're tweaking the Mercedes engine so to make it, specifications for themselves. And to your point, Mike, Aston Martin's not making any changes whatsoever, other than what you taking everything from Mercedes last season. How about you, Chaz? Do you see something different?
Yeah, I mean, it still puts you in the same position where you still have to beat everyone else in their improvements, right? And to Mike's point, if you have other teams who also have Mercedes parts, I mean, they're not actual Mercedes like the Aston Martin is, right? But I mean, McLaren also has a Mercedes engine. Like you said, Williams has a Mercedes engine. I mean, I guess the real question becomes, I guess, the question that we started off with, which is, hey, if you put someone else in a Mercedes, do they get Mercedes type results? I don't think that what they're giving them is purebred 2020 technology. Also, I mean, if you give me a cell phone, like if you give me, like you hand me an iPhone right now, right? And like, you're just like, hey, you lay out all the parts on a table. It doesn't mean that I would like become like the largest cell phone manufacturer in the next year because I have all the parts. I still need to know how to put them together. It's still a matter of engineering, right? So I don't think that anyone has the engineers that Mercedes has, and I still just don't really have a ton of faith in that. Actually, I won't even say that. I won't even say it's a matter of not believing in them as much as it is believing in the other teams. Like McLaren, I love Zach Brown. I love what he's doing over there. I love Lando Norris. Ricardo is the man. Like, great drivers. Red Bull is just an institution. Like they're consistently great and they're right on the cusps, right? Mercedes is Mercedes. So like, it's not even a matter of like, okay, do I think that Aston Martin is good? Sure, but as Mike pointed out, relative to what, right? Are they going to be better than McLaren? Are they going to be better than Red Bull? Are they going to be better than the Mercedes? No. And if Renault gets back on track, I mean, a couple seasons ago, they were right on pace to. Well, actually, they weren't on pace. They actually did what they said that they would do. They strategically had been working, and I saw this on Drive to Survive. They had a strategic plan to get to fourth place, right? Like they were like, hey, we're gonna start here in the midfield, and we're gonna work our way and get to fourth place, and that's exactly what they did in what would have been the 2018 season. Um, and then they just fell off, right? Like they fell off course. If Renault figures it out, I mean, Renault can figure it out at any point, just like Aston Martin could, right? And I have more confidence in them being able to figure it out, having done it before, than Aston Martin figuring it out for the first time.
Well, back to my original point is Mercedes is buying stake into Aston Martin. So they have.
Yeah, I mean, success is, but that's the thing though. Like, because if you let's look at Haas for example.
Okay.
If you look at Haas, one might ask, okay, they don't have sponsors, or their sponsors are dropping out. Why would they continue to stay in Formula One? And it's because it gives them visibility. So as a business investment, it still makes financial sense. Otherwise, they wouldn't pour hundreds of millions of dollars into it, right? So I think what we're talking about are two different things. Like it being a good business investment is not the same as winning.
Mike, do you see the same thing?
Yeah, I agree with Chaz. I mean, it's sorry, I lost my thought. No, I agree. I just lost my thought.
No, that's all right.
I was going to say something and it just went out of my head. In the end of the day, technology is what F1's about. It's always been about technology, all the way back to the 60s and 70s, and to work. I just lost my thought. I'm sorry.
I have to admit, at least the green and pink combo of their car looks pretty good.
Oh my, yeah. Well, absolutely. And I like the historical aspects of that because they're going back to their original livery color of green.
Yeah.
So
I saw like a preview of it. It was supposed to, one of the pictures was like the Aston Martin wings, one wing on each side of the car, looked pretty cool. But I kind of like how they just did it, the plain green for right now and the pink stripe down the middle. I guess I'm a little more bullish than you guys on Aston Martin, but we'll see. I mean, well, they're getting third now, but I mean, they may be more a top or mid-tier than people might think, but that's just me.
Well, whatever success they have will be because of their drivers, not necessarily because of the car they're in, because they're still going to be a year behind Mercedes.
And they still have to figure out how to use it. It's old technology, like Mike said, and they have to figure out how to put it together. What makes you so bullish? Is it the technology, having access to that 2020 tech, and the fact Mercedes tech, and the fact that it's better than most, Brock?
Better than most.
Yeah.
I said before, I'm more bullish than I was a couple weeks ago on Aston Martin because I thought, to me, they were probably finished like the last of the mid tiers, but now I'm like, maybe they can move up from there. Maybe fifth, fourth, I don't know. Probably not that high, but just having access to that tech and what Vettel could do with it. Yes, he might be a little bit washed up, but he still has knowledge behind him. Just like what we talked about last week with Kevin Magnussen and Romain Grosjean giving information to Haas. They're not world champions, but they had information that they could give it to Haas. Same situation. Vettel could give information. Will he help Lando Norris? And we're going to get into this here in a minute, the best driver pairings. But will he help Lando Norris? I don't think so. I think he's there to just help himself. But I
No,
think
he's very much in an Alonso at McLaren situation where he's just kind of there for himself. I agree with you on that.
and also to your point about Haas not having any sponsors. Before you came in, Mike and I were talking, Chaz, that actually at this point we're recording this. All the teams revealed their cars for this year except for Ferrari. Haas,
Is Ferrari really going to change all that much?
red.
Let's be honest.
It's gonna be red. But
Ferrari comes out with a yellow car, I'm gonna shit my pants.
If Ferrari comes out with anything but a red car, Italy will probably rise up in rebellion. And anyway, go ahead.
it'd be World War III there. But no, Haas's car. I mean, Mike, you and Mike, you put it perfectly. It looked like someone out of Russia, honestly.
Oh,
Instead of
no, they admitted it. The guy who bailed him out is Maspin, who's a Russian businessman, and the deal for him to financially back Haas was to put his kid in the seat. One of the seat, I think his name is, let's see, I have it up here, Nikita Maspin, as one of the drivers, and he's not anywhere near F1 level driver. He's a good driver, but it's kind of like if it wasn't for daddy, he wouldn't be driving F1. And when they revealed the livery, it was the Russian flag colors. And they basically said they changed the colors to the Russian flag colors.
well, it's no longer an American.
USA.
It is no longer an American team.
No, it's a Russian team. It's a Russian team.
Yeah, I mean, and also, I mean, Mazepin has gone through the ranks, right? Like he's actually come up in GP3, Formula 3. So I mean, he's definitely he can drive a car. Is he one of the 20 best drivers on planet Earth?
I tell you this. This is just
Stroll.
Well, he's exactly. But if it wasn't for Daddy buying into this team, he would not be in F1. Good or not, he doesn't.
Well, I actually don't know that that's even true because then you have to look at some other drivers like even one of your guys, Latifi.
I mean, Latifi, oh yeah, absolutely.
He brings in a lot of investment, right? It's not because he's again one of the 20 best drivers in the world, but I mean he brings a lot of investment with him. So he probably still would bring a lot of investment with him, even if his dad didn't buy the team. But I think to your point though, he's just not one of the best drivers that there is.
No, I mean there's drivers out there that would be a better drivers in F1, but and I'm not saying Maspin's the only one. There's a couple in F1 that are there simply because Daddy's got a big wallet.
Yep.
And who would not be in F1 if their dad hadn't given money to the team.
Yeah, I mean you could even look at like Ferrari's reserve driver. I think his name's like Callum Lott or something. But he was the Formula 2 runner-up, so he was second behind Mick Schumacher last season. Yeah. But he's Ferrari's reserve. I mean, and he was second in Formula 2, right?
Which is good. I mean, that's you still got to be a good driver to come in second.
Yeah,
or even be in the top 5. So, yeah.
I mean, he's one of the top 3 finishers in Formula 2 are all in Formula 1 right now in different capacities, right? So we've got one of them, which is at AlphaTauri.
Yeah.
Right. Then obviously we have Mick Schumacher, and then we've got Callum. And Callum's just a reserve driver for Ferrari, but Mike, I think that Callum could probably take somebody's seat as the runner up in Formula 2, having proven it on a track that he can
That he
drive.
can drive. Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, once again, a great segue into our next topic. Another team we haven't covered yet is AlphaTauri. And how excited are you guys? How excited are you guys about Gasly's chances and the rookie, Yuki Tsunoda? Now, of all the rookies here into the season, I feel that Yuki is probably the best one out of the bunch.
Absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. That's going to be exciting. I hope he podiums, because that's Grand Prix has always gone to Japan.
Yeah.
But how many Japanese F1 drivers have we seen? Not many over the years. I mean, it's not like there's a time where it's basically dominated by European drivers. And to see Yuki in there, and I haven't really done a lot of research on him, but the little research I've done, he's going to be exciting to watch. He's a go-getter, man. He's not going to back down in the corner. He's not going to be intimidated by these guys, and he's going to stick his nose right in. Hopefully he can keep his car on all four wheels and finish races, but with some of these guys, but he's not going to back down. I'm excited. I'm excited about it.
Yeah. And to your point, Mike, the last Japanese driver was 2014 when two teams folded that year. And
Yeah.
I felt like I mean, of all the drivers we have, rookie drivers, I think Yuki is probably the best one of the bunch. He definitely at least will finish in points a couple of seasons. I hope he does that in Japan, honestly. He is very familiar and very comfortable with the Honda power unit. That's who went up in the ranks with Formula 4 all the way up to Formula 2. He's with Honda. So he's very familiar, even though, Formula 2 to Formula 1 is a different beast, but he knows the team. He knows he's been with them for a while. So I think he could definitely, him and with Gasly, even though Gasly's been there for a few years, Gasly has some experience underneath him. I think that will make a great driver pairing this season, honestly. Chaz, what do you think from AlphaTauri?
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, Yuki's, he's from Japan, so he probably drives a VTEC Honda. So he's, no, I'm kidding.
There goes our Japanese subscribers there. Appreciate
that. So, I mean, I don't watch Formula 2, so help me out, guys. Like, I know Mick Schumacher won last season. Mm-hmm. Did he not have as convincing a season as Yuki did, or is it just kind of a style of driving thing?
Well, it's from what I understand, he was up there with Schumacher. He was very close.
Yeah. He won 3 races in F2.
Mm-hmm.
Yuki did, and he's always been in like the top 5. He's kind of like Verstappen. He's right there.
Yeah.
Once in a while he'll get up on the podium, but he's always pushing everybody in front of him. So he's an exciting driver. I give him that. It's going to be fun to watch.
With everything that's going on right now, with all the rule regulations, everything like that, you give him a couple years, he's going to be like a George Russell. If you give him the right power unit, he could be a champion.
I agree with that. Absolutely.
Here's my problem with AlphaTauri specifically. I feel like, based on what you guys are telling me, Yuki's probably has a lot of upside potential. Mm-hmm. I actually feel like even as young as he is, Gasly is on the downturn. And this is not me being like overly critical. It's more of an observation than it is a criticism, right? Like, I mean, being on a top 3, a top 2 team, and losing your seat because you just got crushed. Like, he just got outperformed by Verstappen, and it wasn't even close. I mean, Gasly's he's not on the uptick. I mean, he obviously, even getting called up to Red Bull was very impressive. After having been on their backup team himself. But I don't know. I feel like they might even out.
Well, how about this? Do you see for this season here? Do you see Yuki surpassing Gasly?
I mean, I don't know enough about him as a driver. I would say that my last point probably still stands. I mean, and here's what's also true, right? Like, what's also true is last season, Pierre Gasly had a win in Italy, right? I mean, that's also true. It's he also, I think, in the last race in Portugal, he came in fifth place. So it's not like he's a terrible driver. That may have been an incorrect characterization. I'm just saying that, like, when we rate drivers, generally we rate them, as successful or not. Usually we're asking the question, hey, is this someone who could be a world champion? Is this someone who could be the best driver in the field? And where Gasly might have had that sort of potential or cachet maybe a couple seasons ago, and especially going into his first season at Red Bull, the questions still had to be answered. I feel like a lot of those questions have been answered, and that victory in Italy, obviously that race was a cluster, right? Like that was an absolute mess. But he still held it together. He still had to hold his car together. So he's not a crap driver. That was a bad characterization on my part. But I don't know. I feel like I would like to see Yuki make it competitive and see those two guys push each other forward. That'd be fun.
Well, how about you, Mike? You know Yuki a little bit better than Chaz, probably even me.
Uh, I think this is a case where they're bringing in a young driver to kind of uh, be around Pierre Gasly. I'm not Pierre's win in Italy last year was what I said earlier. Teams are 2 or 3 car accidents away from winning. In that race, the cars that didn't finish are Verstappen, Leclerc, and Vettel were out. Their cars didn't finish. Hamilton had a 15-second penalty because he cut a corner or did something. I can't remember he ignored the don't pit on a red flag. So he ignored the don't pit, got a 15-second, which put him in last place with like 15 or 16 laps left. And in those 15 or 16 laps left, he finished 7th. So he got all the way back up to 7th. So Gasly won because 3 cars got knocked out that probably would have been in the top 5. At least 2 of them would have been in the top 5. And Hamilton got a huge penalty, and I think Bottas had something wrong with his car too. So it was technical difficulties, a penalty, and 3 accidents, and Gasly wins. So those things don't happen. Is he top 10? He might have been, but like Chaz was saying, that whole race was entertaining, but it was a clusterfuck. It was a cluster. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
Do you,
Put a PG rating there.
But do you see like Yuki surpassing?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think he is going to be an exciting driver to watch. And I see him on the podium, and it's too early to tell. I don't know how long he's going to stay with AlphaTauri, but I don't see him staying with AlphaTauri more than maybe a couple of years, and then the big boys will be calling him to come jump in their seats.
Actually, I was going to put you on the spot. How long do you think it would take Yuki to surpass Gasly?
This year.
Within a few races?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. Well, that leads us to our last discussion here. Best driver pairings on the grid. Now, there's some good ones. Of course, there's some bad ones. But for me, the best one are the double C's in Charles and Carlos and Ferrari. I think those are 2 nice guys. I think they want to help Ferrari as much as possible, especially Charles. And with Carlos going back there, I think those 2 can really work together. Chaz, do you see something different? Who's your favorite pairing there?
Yes. So,
Mercedes.
um, Yeah, I feel like that's kind of like the obvious answer. I'll actually, in all actuality, I think the most talented driver pairing in my very humble but also correct opinion is Verstappen and Perez. I think that like as far as talent goes, I mean those guys are they have the most upside plus the most potential to bring in results this upcoming season, surprising results.
Mike?
Until they're knocked off their pedestal, Hamilton Bottas is still the team to beat. Those two drivers, they're always constantly in the top four. Hamilton, of course. I mean, it's like it's a foregone conclusion that outside of a technical difficulty or crash, Hamilton's probably going to win the race. Bottas is going to be right there with Verstappen pushing for second and third. But as a team, they like each other, or at least they respect each other enough not to wreck each other on the course or get in each other's way. They both are dedicated to Mercedes because Mercedes has given them this tremendous opportunity. I think they work well together, and they've worked together well for many years. And until one of them retires or Hamilton retires, I think that's the pairing to beat. If Hamilton's not up there, Bottas is. You just look at the grid. 1, 2, and 3. P1, 2, and 3 is always Bottas, Verstappen, Hamilton, and two of them are on a team. So Hamilton's the better driver, but as a team, I think they're the best pairing. That's an easy pick, but now if you ask me who the best of the rest is, it's hard to say, but because my heart's with Williams, and hopefully they do better this year. But the rest of the pairings are pairings of extremes. So you got a really good driver in Russell. Latifi, he's okay. Leclerc and Sainz, I think, are a good pairing, most evenly paired, and they get along. If Ferrari can get a good engine and get a good car under them, they're going to make some noise. The top team, Bottas and Hamilton.
Yeah, I remember a few short years ago when it was Hamilton and Nico.
Yeah.
At it, and those were like a really dangerous pairing, I want to say, because they challenged each other like crazy, and they really didn't. From the outside looking in, they really didn't like each other for the most part, but they challenged each other to be even better.
So they actually did not.
They challenge each other to become better drivers, for that matter. I mean,
there was no love there. I think Bottas and Hamilton have a better relationship.
Yeah, I mean, it makes you wonder though, like, does it really matter whether they didn't like each other? Like Toto didn't break it up, right?
No.
He ultimately won because he still got he still got a championship out of it and a constructor. So it doesn't make any difference which driver it was to him.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, and then you have a driver in Bottas who, let's be honest, he'll probably never win a world championship because I don't know that he has the goal to really take it at Hamilton and challenge him directly. So I don't know. Nico, from what I've heard and kind of watching his story, I mean, they actually went back and forth since they were kids. I'm talking about before they even like 10 years old, younger
all
than that.
All the way back to karting.
Yeah, they've been going back and forth for a long time, and Hamilton's just had been getting his number since they were youngsters. So he took it to him, gave him everything he had, and won a championship. And he probably could have done it again. Honestly, I mean, he's a great driver, but decided to just peace out and retire. But anyways, that was definitely a cool a cool season. What was that? 2017, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
16.
16. Yeah, that was super fun. You know, it's one of those things that, like, okay, if you're not going to have any competition for number one, what are the interesting pairings going on, you know, within it? And so if you could have drivers against each other, or even just some mixing up in the midfield, which, you know, is a lot of what we've been talking about. But yeah, that was definitely a fun season to watch.
That was the last real season that I thought that the parity was entertaining enough to where you really didn't know who was going to win the race.
It came down to the last race. In fact, that's the last time it came down to the last race. Last second.
It did. So the season. So this would have been maybe 2 or 3 seasons ago now, when Vettel and Hamilton were going back and forth. I want to say it was the 2019 season. I want to say I actually feel like correcting myself and saying it was 2018.
18.
But yeah, Hamilton and Vettel were going at it, man. Like that was also a very entertaining season when back when Ferrari was still more than competitive.
I remember that. I remember the 2016 season because it came down to Abu Dhabi, and Lewis Hamilton was first, Nico was second, and there was I forgot what Ferrari was third. I forgot it was Kimi or it was Vettel, but in order for Lewis Hamilton to win that championship, he needed that Ferrari to pass Nico in second place. It came down to that, and never came to be. And I just love how Nico won his championship and retired.
Yeah,
that's it.
And you know, and now in the last 2 years, it's like three races left, and Hamilton's the winner. He doesn't have to show up for the last 3 races, and he's the champion. Like, come on, guys.
Yeah, I'm looking at the history right here of. I'm sorry, I know you're going into something else, Brock, but looking at the history of like Hamilton and Vettel going back and forth, and seeing those guys like. This report says in Azerbaijan back in 2017 that they almost came to blows, going back and forth. And when it talks about Lewis Hamilton, it says the 3-time world champion, and it's just weird. It's weird that like he was behind Vettel in world championships in 2017, and now he's the GOAT as far as like winning goes.
Yeah,
and that wasn't that long ago. It's like crazy.
Do you, and just a question, I think we talked about this, but Hamilton, there's words going around, or it's in the air that he might retire. Do you think he'll retire before he surpasses Schumacher, or do you think he's going to hold out until he passes Schumacher and then retires?
He would pass him this year.
Oh, I thought he was a couple races behind.
No, I'm talking about in championships.
Yeah, in driver championships.
Yeah, so Schumacher.
Oh, so they're tied. That's right. They tied him last year, right? 17.
Yeah. 17? And well, are you talking about world championships?
Yeah, world championships.
Yeah. So yeah, they both have 7.
Or 7.
Yeah, they both have 7. I think so. They both have the same number of world championships, but Lewis already has more wins, I believe.
More podiums, yeah. Okay,
yeah.
More first place. Okay. So basically, Lewis is going to win it this year and retire.
More podiums and more grid starts there too. More qualifying wins as well, from what I understand.
Yeah, P1. Yeah.
Well, honestly, that's everything
Lewis
I got.
Has the most F1 wins at 95.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, man. It's going to be a while before anybody else surpasses him there. So.
Yeah. He's kind of like Tom Brady. We'll never see it in our lifetime.
We shall see, though. Maybe, maybe not. Who knows? You never know what's going to happen this season, honestly, or next season, or even though that most likely Hamilton will win this season. It's just going to be interesting to see with everything in place right now. But,
Yeah.
It'll definitely be more competitive, more even.
and that's probably one of the reasons why Hamilton might call it quits. He's going to have his 8th championship. It's like, you know what? Let me just leave it at that, and no more dominance after that, basically.
I mean, he has nothing else to prove. I think we talked about it a couple of weeks ago. I think it depends on what he wants. Like if he, as far as the sport goes, he's going to win his 8th this year, barring injury. So, he'll have nothing else to prove. He'll be universally Schumacher is the GOAT, right? So to have outperformed the GOAT in wins and then to do it in world championships, I mean, you kind of don't need to make your case anymore. You kind of leave it the floor for other people to make the case for you. So you don't have anything else to say, literally, in that case. So I don't think he has anything else to say, but I feel like he's one of those characters, almost like a Tom Brady, in the sense that, like, I don't think Tom Brady had anything else to say, as far as like what he's done in his NFL career. I don't think he needed to go to Tampa Bay and to play more seasons of football. I think he just felt like he had something else that he wanted to prove and something else he wanted to say. And he's just kind of built differently. Like most guys would just call it quits and be like, hey, look, everyone agrees that I am great, but I don't think that they speak the same language as everyone else. I think the reasoning and the rationale for why they do things is probably a little bit different. That's probably what makes them great too.
Well, I appreciate that you have a different background almost every week there, Chaz.
So what are you trying to say?
I got the same back. I still got holes in my wall I'm covering up here. So.
Well, a lot of this is because of just being displaced. My house still looks like a Taliban bomb bunker.
Oh no!
Yeah, like the floors are completely ripped out. It's all concrete on the floor. The walls are ripped out. Like it's actually crazy. So I'm staying with an aunt and uncle.
Mm. Well, I'm kind of surprised none of us lost our top this week. Mike, I was expecting you to lose your top with that sprint races, but
well, the younger Mike would have, because I like history. I like the purity of stuff, but I can see where they're going with it, and I think it's better for the sport because it's going to bring in the younger crowd. It's going to bring in people who maybe never would have watched F1, but with this new wrinkle, it's going to make it more entertaining to watch and make it more competitive.
That's good.
Because it's not good when the same people win every single week. It's just not good. It's not good for the sport.
Well, it's good for Chaz.
That's good for Chaz. It's not good for bringing in revenue because it's a known, it's why people hate champions. They like them when they first get there, but then after a while it wears thin. That's why everybody hates. I know we keep bringing up Tom Brady, but people hate him. They want him to quit. It's like, move out of the way because we know every year you're going to be there. Hamilton retired because we know every race, unless a tire goes out, you crash or you get a penalty, you're going to win. And that doesn't make it very exciting to watch. So I think the new wrinkles in the sport, the sprints, all that stuff is going to make it more interesting and bring in a different crowd. The purist in me hates it. The racing enthusiast, I'm excited to see where it goes.
Yeah, same here. Change is not always bad, but we'll see where it goes. I mean, it said before, they're only trying it for 3 races this season. If it doesn't work, if the drivers don't like it, fans don't like it, they're going to drop it altogether. Just like they did a few years ago when they had like the last race of the season will have double points. They dropped it right then and there because no one liked it. So you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But actually, we're getting inching closer to the season start. So we're going very soon to have our predictions for constructors, for drivers for the season. Also very soon, what races, what Grand Prix would you like to see back on the calendar? We're going to discuss that here in the next couple weeks. In the meantime, follow us on Twitter at Form of Racing. Email us any topics you want us to cover, theformofracing@gmail.com. And we'll see you next time right here on the F1 Grid.